What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and as you all know, if you're familiar with this channel, I don't do reviews, okay? Generally, I say I consider them not reviews, just my opinion on the game. I know you can argue a review is just an opinion, but I like to just talk about it in different ways that don't come across like a review, and you can make your own judgment from that or whatever it is. But I want to take a look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I am purposely using all the footage that I've recorded from the start of the game because I don't want to give massive spoilers or anything like that, because I do have a huge amount of time in the game as it is, and I don't want someone that's just curious about Zelda or that's only starting off and they're trying to see what other people's opinions are, and then suddenly they just click into my video and boom, I'm showing something from 40 hours in. No, not gonna happen. So we all know Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is the latest Zelda game. It's the latest home console Zelda game since Skyward Sword, and I suppose you could call it it's one of the most recent installments in Zelda completely. Well, it is the most recent, but there have been several installments, new installments, not just remasters or remakes, whatever you want to call them, in the portable line of games. I mean, you've got, there's stuff like Triforce Heroes and Link Between Worlds, and then you've got obviously Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D, but we're not going to include those. We're looking specifically since Skyward Sword on the Wii. So the Wii U version and the Nintendo Switch version are both essentially the same. There's some performance, issues, but there's some performance differences, slight graphical changes as well, slight graphical, depending on your platform, either improvements or, stuff that's been taken away or downgraded. But we're not going to really focus on that stuff too much. We're going to focus on the actual quality of the game and the additions to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The biggest comparison you'll find with Breath of the Wild is Skyrim. Now, we all know way back in the day, I say way back in the day, it was just a few years ago, 6 years ago basically, but The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which, as I mentioned, is the most recent home console release, which released on the Wii, not the Wii U, remember that. So it was the Wii. It was that standard definition motion control console from, when was it, 2007, 2008? But you get the idea. So it released a week after Skyrim, released on the 18th of the 11th, 2011. So that's a week after Skyrim. Now, at this point, Skyrim had already started doing its thing and taking over the world. We all know Skyrim changed the face and landscape of adventure role-playing games completely. There's no denying that whatsoever. And usually the biggest comparison you see for Breath of the Wild is Skyrim. And yes, that feels absolutely fully justified. So it's really strange. I mean, when you start playing this, I mean, I've played every main Zelda game since, I'm not going to say since a specific game, but I've played every main Zelda game. Maybe not in its exact launch day form or whatever, but sure, maybe I haven't finished all of them. But at the same time, I've usually played enough to understand what it's about and to get a grip with the world, the design, how everything worked in it as well, the gadgets and accessories, things like that. Now, most people are going to say something like this. I've said it once before, and I was still kind of in a little bit of hype mode when I said it before. But now that I've actually played it and put a significant amount of time into it, I have not finished Breath of the Wild, but I believe I'm very close to the end, and I've got like 40 hours into it, but I've got a huge amount of exploration done and things like that. So I want to say that it's not that other Zelda games have been disappointments or letdowns or anything like that. They are what they are, and they usually have we'll call it a very tight focus. And it's not so much an improvement as they usually are. What would be the best way of describing it? They're most usually their own thing. So that's like usually, you can't compare the likes of Twilight Princess to Skyward Sword. You can't compare Skyward Sword to Ocarina of Time, things like that. They just kind of fit in by themselves. Now, having said all that, Breath of the Wild is easily the most important and arguably best game in the Zelda series since, well, actually I have to break that up into two pieces. It's Breath of the Wild is arguably the most important Zelda game since Ocarina of Time, when the series first moved to 3 dimensions on the Nintendo 64. So it's arguably it is the most important Zelda since Ocarina of Time. You had Skyward Sword, you had Twilight Princess, you had Wind Waker, things like that. They all had their own improvements and additions to the series. I mean, sure, Wind Waker even had a pretty decent open world. Most people didn't like the sailing, but I think they're just crazy. So when you look at all those games, and not to even touch on the portable games, but when you look at those, the main entries on the console side of it, this is easy. Okay, we'll call them, just for argument's sake, we'll throw in Majora's Mask because that released after Ocarina. But this is easily and definitely the most important Zelda game since Ocarina of Time. It's the new Ocarina of Time, if you will. And that's, as any Zelda fan will know, that is not a light statement. That is a pretty significant, important statement in the Zelda franchise. Now, having said that as well, it's also the best Zelda game I have played since Link to the Past. Link to the Past being the best Zelda game ever made, in my opinion. Just throwing it out there. Don't go crazy and jump down my throat and leave a fucking paragraph in the comments section below about how, I don't know, a fucking Zelda CDI game is better. Anyway, my point being, this is easily the most engrossing and the most, I'd almost arguably say, addicting Zelda game since Link to the Past. It's one of the few that I have not been able to put down since I picked it up originally. Now, I have the Switch version. I've been playing it since last Friday when the Switch actually came out. And I find myself playing this for 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I just can't get enough of it. I just cannot put it down. It is absolutely enveloping my life. I was trying to think of another word that wasn't engrossing because I already used that. But yeah, it's basically enveloping my life for the moment, and I really have to get it done as, I won't say as quick as possible, but I definitely have to finish it within the next few days. And it's one of the few games that I can already tell that as soon as I finish it, I'm jumping straight back in, depending on where it picks up your save file and all that. But there's a bunch of autosaves, or I might even do a separate manual save. But I can already tell that once I finish it, I'm jumping straight back into this game to max out my Link. It's that simple. I was going to trigger a lot of people here and just say max out my Zelda and see how many people left an angry comment below, but then I realized, no, I might just look ignorant, and yeah, that's not going to roll for me. But it's just, the attention to detail in so many small things is really good. And it really shows how well thought out a lot of this stuff actually was. Now, it can range from small little things that you wouldn't think of to stuff that you've already seen in other games that has just finally been implemented into a Zelda game. And usually, if in the case of that, they've been implemented in a good way. And there's some, yes, the game is not perfect. There are a couple of small negatives on there too. Specifically, one or two of the systems in game and the performance issues. The Switch version, even when docked, does have a significant amount of performance issues. Well, not a lot of the time, but a decent amount of the time. You will have seen many of them in this video, as well as you'll just see them. You've probably seen them already in this video, and you'll see some more in this video as well. But there are a couple of other small ones as well. Specifically, what's the best way to describe it? The weapon durability system. It can be a little bit tedious sometimes, and I mean, sure, it's not perfect, it's not completely unperfect and the worst thing ever, but it could be improved on slightly, and it's more of a minor inconvenience. But you know, we work around it. This is one of the things we put up with because we don't want our hands held, and we don't want to be babied the entire way through the game. It does get a little bit annoying and tedious, but I mean, it's personally, to me, it's one of those things where I take it as I take it in its stride. It's one of the let's call it one of the mechanics you have to work around, basically. Now, if you're not familiar with what it is, maybe you haven't played the game much or at all, in Breath of the Wild, every weapon in the game except for one has a durability. So you can hit an enemy a certain amount of times with it before it actually breaks. And then you have to obviously replace it with a different type of weapon. So you get the idea. But the variety of weapons, the variety of shields, the variety of arrows, the variety of bows, I won't even get to the items just yet, but because of all the stuff like that, it really can change up the playstyle. And that also leads back to what I was saying a minute ago, like with the small little. This video, as you can probably tell, is all just random off the top of my head kind of thing, because apparently I'm a professional, so why not? But it ties back into all the small stuff. I mean, there's small things like you can get an axe, a woodcutter's axe, okay, and you can swing that around as a weapon. You can kill the crap out of stuff with it. You can also go up to a tree, hit it a few times, knock it down. Oh look, suddenly the tree fell down in a way that now created a bridge across a ravine that you couldn't get around before. Whoa, that's important. That's good. One of the things as well that's a very, very welcome addition to Breath of the Wild and just the Zelda series in general is that walls, especially in a big open world game like this, walls, cliffs, anything like that, no longer presents itself as an obstacle, because you can properly climb walls, scale cliffs, whatever it is. As long as you have the stamina or the gear to improve your stamina or your potions or your food or whatever it is, there is usually a way around it. And that is great for the simple reason is it lends itself to the exploration aspect of Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild is one of those games that, in my opinion, it has that top tier open world exploration feel. It's easy to make an open world game. It's easy to make a game that can be explored. It's not easy to make a game that can have both of those in its top quality form. A lot of people will say Skyrim has been the last version of, or the last game that has had the top tier exploration and top tier, world and all built into it. Some people will argue Witcher 3. I haven't played The Witcher 3. I can't touch on that. But other than the main media outlets and all that, when people actually properly explain the world of The Witcher, it does not sound anywhere near as exploration rich or world rich as it sounds, or as it's made out to be. Fallout 4 also gets a lot of praise for it. I disagree with the Fallout 4 aspect of it. As someone who's put over 100 hours into Fallout 4, I feel like I can vouch for that. But you get the idea. It's one of the few games in the last 5-6 years where you can easily say, almost straight away, this game has a proper top quality open world with top quality exploration. It has that explorative feel. I mean, like I said, it's easy to make a game where you can explore stuff. It's not easy to make a world where you can explore stuff and it actually feels on a grand scale and it actually feels on a significant scale. Zelda Breath of the Wild easily does all of that. Another thing that the open world feel and the quality open world that they've created actually lends itself to extremely well is because the world is so big, it can have what you could arguably just call microclimates. There's all different regions in the game which have all different climates, all different art designs, all different enemy styles, all different items, all different weapons. It's all there. I know I just used the word all a ton of times, but it really goes to show that they've crafted each one of these sections individually and that everything about the individual section is completely relevant to itself. You can go to the wetlands. You're going to see a lot of enemies that are, say, water-based. You're going to see them that can hide in long grass. You're going to see things that can crawl up trees a lot. You're going to see stuff that build, what are they called, macablins. They're going to build these high up vantage points with all sorts of semi villages in them as well, because it's strategically placed. And they've done it in a way as well that when you look at some of the whatever you want to call them, the ruins that have been dotted around the world itself, the world of Hyrule, when you look at all of that, it's sparse enough. Now this is just in the aspect of the ruins and all of that, because I don't want to. It relates to the story, but I don't want to. I don't want to spoil the story for anyone or give away anything like that. But it all relates to the story. This game is tipped as a sequel to a previous Zelda game. I won't tell you which one, and I won't tell you which one they reference or where it fits in the timeline. They do make a bunch of references to a lot of other Zelda games, though, specifically in one cutscene. Again, I won't tell you what it is or anything like that, but they mention basically every console or the majority of console installments in like not just one cutscene, but one sentence in a cutscene. But anyway, when you're looking at ruins and all of that kind of stuff, it's all sparse enough that when you find one, it feels like an event. It feels like something proper. It feels like an actual discovery, which ties back to the exploration side of it as well. But they're not too sparse in the sense that there's only 2 of them in the entire game and you will possibly never find them. So that is completely tied in a great way that works on so many different levels. So I'm going to leave it there because otherwise I'm going to be talking. This video is way too long as it is, but I'm going to be talking for another 16 minutes or so if I just keep talking about absolutely everything. But I feel like I've touched on the main, more important things that I want to touch on, at least for my impressions of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So if you're a fan of home console Zeldas, because we all know the console Zeldas are very different from the mobile Zeldas. If you're a fan of home console Zeldas and you have either a Wii U or a Nintendo Switch, I definitely recommend picking this up. Don't worry, this video is still not a review, but I'm just recommending the game to someone because this is just a fantastic Zelda game. And chances are, if you're a Zelda fan, you already know if you're getting this or if you're not getting this, or you may already have it or whatever. But I definitely recommend this game to, God knows, pretty much everyone or anyone who's into this kind of thing. It's arguably the biggest entry in the genre since Skyrim, which is a pretty big deal, if you ask me at least. But, it's not everyone's cup of tea. We'll see how it goes. So no matter how you're playing this game, if you're playing it from a Wii U disc, if you're playing it from a digital version on a Wii U, if you're playing it digitally on a Switch in whatever mode, portable, docked, TV, whatever. And of course, if you're playing it digitally on a Switch, or if you're playing it on a game card from a Switch, because don't forget people, they are not cartridges, they are game cards. Despite what many media outlets and people and fanboys will try to tell you, I like to be nice and pedantic and just say, hey, they're game cards, not cartridges, die in a fire. Anyway, that's a little bit of a joke, so don't try to take it too seriously. I'm going to go back to Breath of the Wild. Like I said, I'm pretty far in it. I have a lot of stuff that I want to really, really work on, and I hope it goes pretty well. If you have tried Zelda, Breath of the Wild, if you are curious about it, if you've already decided you don't want it, if you have any questions about it, anything like that, try to keep spoilers to a minimum because I don't want someone, getting something ruined on them. Throw all that stuff in the comment section below. Your opinion on it, your experience with it, whatever it is. Let me know all that down there. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel while I go back to exploring Hyrule.